So, is there actually a way to have a happy ending? Uh, Probably Hey guys, thanks so much for clicking on the video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. This is the conclusion. This is the 10th episode of the Jeffrey Dahmer story as told by Ryan Murphy. This episode 10, is called God of Forgiveness, God of Vengeance. As I said, is there a way, is there a possible way for this to have had a happy ending? Probably not. Everybody loses. Everybody loses. And just a murder in general. Everybody loses. Two families lose a family member. One is gone forever, the other one is gone for a period of time. Everybody loses. The angst and the bad feelings and all of that stuff, it's on both sides. It's on both sides. The murderer and the person murdered. Nobody sees a good time. There's no such thing as a happy ending. And this type of stuff, this is an even more crazy version of that, a really more amplified version of that. There's still two families involved, two families losing a child. There's more than two families with this. It's multiple families, multiple children missing. There ain't no way for a happy ending. People who didn't make it, people who got away, they're still messed up. Life just disrupted. So anyway, it gets deep, but let's go here. Ryan, Lord have mercy. As if I thought it couldn't get no better. Listen, we open right up with Chicago, Illinois, 1977. I said, whoa, 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 whoa. How we get to Chicago and what is we doing here? We see little guy, little white guy. As soon as I seen this person, I said, oh God, I know who this is. And I know what this is all about. John Wayne Gacy, baby. We literally get an insight into John Wayne Gacy actually doing what he does with one of his victims. And of course, it's very disturbing. Ryan did it in the only way the only Ryan could do it. And it was a masterclass in horrific cinematography. Okay. John Wayne Gacy had 33 victims. And truly, if you've actually sat through this, and I've actually done video on a Netflix series on John Wayne Gacy, I will leave the link. You can actually check that out. There's 3 parts of that. I will leave the link for that. But he's heinous. He's narcissist, a lot of the same things. But this is not about John Wayne Gacy. But I was just mad that Ryan threw me back in John Wayne Gacy land. I said, oh, jeez. But the whole point was John Wayne Gacy was actually getting ready to be, and that's the wrong choice of words. I was getting ready to say terminated. I'm going to hang with that. Terminated. He's getting ready to be terminated, okay, in 77, okay? And not in 77. In 77 is when he was still doing his thing. But in Jeffrey Dahmer's time is when John Wayne Gacy had already been captured and he was literally going to have his lethal injection done. Okay. So that's why John Wayne Gacy came into play with this whole thing. So I understood it, Ryan Murphy. I understood it. But again, it was just another gut punch. And I was like, oh, I thought we was done with all this type of stuff. But no, nope. Anyway, Jeffrey is still there after what happened to him in the church and getting, in service, getting stabbed. He's still continuing to aggravate the inmates at the prison. I'm like, what is wrong with him? Just can't let it go. Can't let it go. And he thinks it's funny. So there's an inmate, a specific inmate named Scarver. And we can see Scarver. He looked a little loose, a little loose. And he went over to Jeffrey and said, you know what? A lot of us is tired of what you do and how you do it, the way you move. We don't think it's funny. We just don't like it. And he said, I'm a Christian and I find your behavior offensive. Now Jeffrey just kind of, yeah, well, okay, man, whatever, not no tough guy stuff, really cowering down, you know, and but whatever. Then we start to see a little more about Scarver, baby. He has mental breaks and he gets triggered. Okay. They didn't go into everything about why he was actually there, but he has these issues. So his situation is so bad that he's not even allowed certain materials from the library. So he literally begged the counselor. He said, no, like I changed my diet. I don't eat things that make me trigger, and since I found God, I'm really good. I really have it under control. He convinced her to go ahead. And she opened up and let him be able, because she said, why are you trying to research Jeffrey Dahmer? He said, I just want to know, what did he do, the things he did that makes him, and she's like, okay, she let it go. She went ahead. When he was reading the articles and things about Jeffrey, you could see him physically triggering. You could see him start to spiral. And we see that throughout this episode. He literally had his own thing going. It completely triggered him. Completely triggered him. But I mean, when he was reading it, and then Ryan did a great job in, like kind of blowing through certain things that we've seen throughout the series and just kind of putting the picture to the things that he was reading in the newspapers. And it was a mess, but you could physically see him triggering. I was like, oh my gosh. So then we actually see a whole little situation where Jeffrey actually has to sit down with the priest of the penitentiary. And he tells him, do you think that people can just actually just be evil? And he said, well, I do believe that. He said, because, I used to like Halloween and different things like that. He said, but then I dressed up as the devil one time and I really liked it. And he said, I built like an altar to the devil. He said, and then I was trying to do a life-size one. That's why I was saving like certain body parts to do it, to make a life-size altar. And the priest was just kind of looking at him. And of course, the priest was an African-American man as well. I'm like, oh Lord. So he's just going on. And I felt like Jeffrey, this was part of his little game that he played. He plays that little narcissistic game. And I think he was trying to trigger the priest. What he was, saying, the things he was saying. I'm like, a mess. A mess. Just, ugh. Then he said, people are comparing me to Gacy, and I'm not like Gacy. Remember, I talked about the narcissism, okay? That narcissism, honey. I'm not like Gacy. I'm me. See, I admitted my crimes. I admitted to everything I did. Gacy still ain't admitting to everything. Oh, so you better than him? The both of y'all ain't worth a dime. I don't know what, really? If that ain't narcissistic, I'll kiss your behind. I said, oh my God, honey. And then he says, do you think that God has forgiven him? And the priest tells him, that's a good question. He says, I don't feel I deserve forgiveness. And he explained to Jeffrey Dahmer about Jesus being on the cross, the fact that he wasn't there by himself, that there were two other men with him, and they were thieves, and how Jesus basically explained really quickly to them about being saved. And the one man actually got saved, and Jesus told him before he died that he would be in the promised land with him by his side, because that's all you have to do is accept that he is. You just have to accept and believe that Jesus is the Son of God and all of that. So Jeffrey's like, oh, okay. Now, this workout made me mad because, again, Jeffrey Dahmer is a manipulator. And I just feel like he was doing more manipulation. But that's just, I'm probably out of order for saying it. But I just felt like he was just occupying his time manipulating people and messing with people, playing in their faces. That's what he did. That's what he does well. He plays in your face. He presents himself as one thing, but he's something completely different. Most serial killers do. Um, just a mess. Anyway, Glenda. Glenda actually is going and seeing her pastor as well because she's having a problem with forgiveness. It's just not there. And she's been having nightmares about wanting to hurt Jeffrey Dahmer, and she just cannot shake it. And she says she's scared of those feelings that she's having. Her pastor told her, you have to pray for strength and pray for God's guidance. That's all you can do. And then he said one day it will come. He said it could be a month from now, it could be a year from now. Who knows? He said one day you'll see literature or a picture of Jeffrey Dahmer and you will feel nothing. So, but you just have to believe. You have to believe in Torah, and then you might want to come to church a little more than you have been. So I just kind of laughed at that, but really good advice. Then we see Jeff and Lionel. His dad comes to see him. He tells him, yeah, they got me on this Prozac, but I do, he told him how he misses boozing and drinking liquor. Ain't no liquor there. And then his dad tells him about, he's like, yeah, all the money that you and your wife are making from that book, you could go on a good vacation, this, that, the other. He's like, oh, no, the book deal kind of went belly up, So he's like, oh. And then he tells him, he says he wants to get baptized. So his dad's all like, oh, that's really good. That's really good. So then he says, I want to know something, though. Will you ever forgive me, Dad? And he said, I would. I will. I do, because you're my son. Okay, which one is it? See, again, the two of them, I cannot with the two of them. I just can't. I don't trust anything that comes out of either one of their mouths. I just don't. It's just, they talk in circles and everything wraps back around to them, and they think that they are these holier than thou beings, and they're just so manipulative. I just don't trust anything that comes out of their mouth, even when they're talking to each other. I was like, what do you mean you will, you do, you may, huh? Whatever. I'm going to move on. Glenda is actually invited to the son's wedding of by Zooton, which is, the father of the two boys. And he ends up telling her that he's actually having a hard time with, letting go of things. He's like, I look, and I got one son, but my other son ain't here. Jeffrey Dahmer's still living, The jailing is just not really enough for him. And keep in mind, Zooton has been getting these phone calls, still getting these nasty phone calls, people telling them to go back where they came from, just nasty, just a mess. And there's more about that shortly. But anyway, he told him, I'm tired of pretending to be strong for my family, and she basically passed the words of her pastoral. She told him, she says, no, the thing is, we have to keep being strong. And I definitely understand where you're coming from. We got to keep pretending to be strong. And then eventually one day we won't be pretending anymore. And I said, come on here. Come on here. Yeah. So I was like, that was, yeah. Because you could just see him. He's just really having a rough time. You just see him. He just looks, just beat down with the whole thing. Then we actually see Tony's mom and two of the other moms had come together about this comic book thing because it's actually picking up steam and growing legs, this whole comic book thing. So they said, you know what? The thing is, we may not ever be able to stop anything, but we're not just going to sit by and just let it happen. We're just going to fight to try to get it removed because it's not good. Like, it doesn't need to be out there. Like, they're just, like our kids wasn't nothing, and making him into like some cartoon character, like he's some type of hero. It just, no, it's not going to happen. So they, they were going to go on and continue to fight with that. And of course, Tony's mother's very spiritual, and she was saying, Jesus is going to take care of everything. This and that. The one mother said Errol's mother, said, I hope Jesus whoops Jeffrey Dahmer's ass. I said, Lord have mercy. Listen, say what you mean what you say. Now dig this. Timing and how things fall out all on the same day. We have a total eclipse. You know, eclipse only happens every so often. We have a total eclipse. It's the same day that John Wayne Gacy is executed. And it's also the same day that Jeffrey was baptized. And the robe that he had, a white robe, was made from one of these fans that he has that mails him things. I said, if y'all don't quit playing. Now, if that isn't playing in the public's face, really, that got on my nerves. That whole little scenario there, that bothered me. That bothered me. So are we going to make it like it's some monumental moment of all those three things happening together? Each thing is a separate thing. The eclipse is what the eclipse is, and the eclipse doesn't need to be coupled up with anything human and out of pocket, such as John Wayne Gacy or Jeffrey Dahmer. I just think the manipulation of it was all like playing in our face all over again. I didn't like it at all. I didn't care for that at all. That really got up underneath my skin. So let's go on. Speaking of things getting under your skin, Scarver is literally struggling. When I say struggling with his trigger, he's struggling and he's literally crying out to God, you tell me what to do and I'll do it. And then there was this work duty setup. And this was a setup, baby. It was a set up. So Jeffrey is, he got baptized. He over there reading the Bible and carrying on. They come to get him for work duty. So there's that one police officer that just do not have it for Jeffrey, the one that took the cassette tape. He goes and gets Jeffrey, sends him on down. So Jeffrey's down there with the one other guy. And they're cracking jokes, some of that off-color jokes. And it's like, okay. And then the cop goes, he's like, work duty. He goes and gets Scarver, brings Scarver down there and says, I got some help for you all today. I said, like I said, they hear and see everything down there at the jailhouse. Maybe they put them in there. I said, this was a setup. This was a setup. Child, the two of them go into the showers. He says, let's go clean the showers. Jeffrey's out cleaning like the weight benches and all that stuff. The cop leaves. He literally leaves and closes the door. So Jeffrey's in there. You hear a mop go down and you hear the handle break. And Jeffrey's looking and he's feeling a little uneasy. I said, oh no, you're not feeling the way that some of your victims felt, are you, Jeffrey? It was like he knew, like something was getting ready to go down. I said, yeah, the same way those people knew something was getting ready to go down. And you hear this like, and all of this kind of carrying on. He come out and the stick is broken and there's blood dripping from it. And Jeffrey's like, what'd you do? He's hollering for the other little white guy. He's like, what'd you do? He gonna say, don't feel bad for him. Dude killed his wife. And then he hit it. And then he tried to pin it on some black guys. Don't feel bad for him. And he said there with that broken mop, he throws that down. And then they start going back and forth talking. And he says, I believe in God. And I feel I'm changed. And he's like, oh, really? Okay. He said, I believe in God too. But my God is a God of vengeance. And he said he sends his vessels to take care of vengeance on things that he ain't got time to get to. And he said, and his wrath always catches up with you. Always. He gets to telling him, ask him questions about the people. Said, you ate the people. You defiled them. You did this, that, and the other. And he's like, well, yeah, well, this, that, and the other. And you could see literally like the pure fear and terror in Jeffrey's eyes. He knew. Like he just knew from the door because Scarver was in madness. at that point. He was in madness. You could see it all. His eyes were dancing, and it was what it was, baby. And it was like, what you gonna do? I mean, come on, you've been banging on people and hitting people with stuff always when they're not looking, but now you face to face with someone just as off as you. What you gonna do? And he said, I drugged them. I drugged them. He said, I drugged them so they didn't feel a thing. He says, no, you like to inflict pain on people and torture them. No, I drugged them. He said, well, that's okay because you're going to feel every minute of this. And he beat him to death upside his head with the actual pole, the pole, the weight pole. He beat him to death all upside his head. I said, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I was like, wow. Now I ain't a fan of that either. I'm not. I'm really not a fan of that because I understand, there's people that do believe, that God is all loving. I believe God is all loving. I don't believe in a God of vengeance and all of that. I don't believe that. But there's people that do believe that. You know what I mean? So nothing away from that. There's people who they feel like that. What you give is what you get. But where the issue comes in at, well, and he said that he felt like he was the vessel that God had sent, and God told him that, but we know that he was a little off. But whatever it is, now you got to deal with what you done done. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. That just, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Pretty bad karma, though. Pretty bad karma. And I mean, you should actually, yeah. And there's a part of me that says, good, because this is what you did. You know what I mean? The inflicting the terror and all of that. I definitely think he deserves that because you did that. If it's good enough for the people that you did it to, then it's good enough for you. But I feel more for Scarver because now that's on you. That body is on you. That body's attached to your soul now. Then you feel like you're doing a good thing, but you're not meant to take lives. We're not. We're not. It's not. It's part of the commandments. Thou shalt not kill. So you just took that on to you now. And what's your karma going to be? You know what I mean? But again, he explained it in the way he felt like God told him to do that. I don't know, but we can get into a whole nother conversation about that. But with that little situation, I really can't tell. I don't know how I feel. I feel very conflicted with that. Very conflicted. I feel like the karma of you suffering, not the actual physical suffering, but just the experience of the terror that you inflicted upon the people and that kind of thing. I felt like that was karma. But again, my heart is more with Scarver and the fact that you just took that on. You think you're doing a good thing, but you just took that on to your soul. And what's going to happen with your soul going over to the other side? I don't know. I'm really conflicted with that. But anyway, moving on. I'm not going to stay there, but move on. His father was brought in. Lionel was brought in to identify the body. And he said, I love you till the day I die. And he finally actually broke down. I said, okay, that's enough for you, Lionel. I couldn't even get into it. I'm so tired of Lionel at this point. I really am. I'm so tired of him. Then we see Joyce and Lionel, and that's what I realized. I said, I'm sick of you two, Joyce. I'm so sick of them two. They still can't even be in the same room together. They just literally hate each other. And they're up here, Fresno State, and this was crazy. The brain, Jeffrey's brain, because he wanted to be cremated, so they cremated him, but they took his brain. His brain was being held at Madison, Wisconsin. And Fresno State wants to do experiments on the brain to try to figure out what was going on with him. Lionel's like, they did that same thing with John Wayne Gacy, and they came up with nothing. They said that the brain was normal. I'm not going to allow it. Jeffrey wanted to be cremated, and his brain should have went with the rest of them. I agree. I thought that was a lot of nerve, and there should have been lawsuits filed. How you just decide to take my brain out and do what you want to do? I said, woo, child, y'all really be doing the most. Who's making these decisions, boy, when you go to crossover? So Lionel's totally against it, the study in the brain. Joyce is in agreement with it. Okay. Um, Again, a lot of that, Joycey don't want the blame. She's still looking for somewhere to place the blame on why he was the way he was. She don't want to be, oh, it was me. I'm sick of Joyce and I'm sick of Lionel. And I don't never have to see nothing about them no more. I am sick of the two of them. You hear me? Sick of them. They end up going to court. The judge ordered that the brain be destroyed. The judge was literally appalled at the request and why they even were in court about it, that it should have been destroyed from the beginning. And I agree with the judge. Then we got Glenda. Glenda goes down. She's fighting with the state because she ended up, she had written a letter and all of this, got a letter back from the state about turning where the building was demolished, turning it into a memorial or a park, a park that was dedicated to the victims. Nothing happened. The lady's trying to blow her off, Miss Yang. She said, Miss Yang, I got a letter from you signed with your signature. And the lady was sitting there looking stupid. I was like, trifling, huh? Trifling much, ma'am, Miss Yang? That was a whole mess. A whole mess. She's trying to blow her off. Well, this takes time. This, that, the other. And Glenda told her, and this is where we was ending out. Glenda told her, it's okay. I ain't got nothing but time, and I'm used to waiting. Just like when I was calling the police all them times. I'm used to waiting. So I'll continue to wait. And she went on. And here, that's what they ended up. The last thing you see on the screen, no park nor memorial has ever been built. Just blown off. Just blown off. A mess. A mess. I said, wow. I said, the police department in Wisconsin, I said, I know y'all's like, no, y'all ain't happy, but we ain't happy with y'all. So it's cool. It is what it is. That was just rough. I said, oh my. Okay, so it took a long time to get here, but we made it. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of support from my people getting through this. And again, I've said it throughout this. I thank you all for your support and the emails that you all did send saying, we got your back. Go on, take a break if you need it. I mean, because it's 10 episodes and it's literally taken me quite some time to get through them all. But you all were good sports and y'all rode with me like no other through this whole thing. And I appreciate it. I hope it did help somebody. I hope somebody will get the story and the details that couldn't stomach watching it. I hope there's somebody out there that by chance won't make the wrong decision, you know what I mean, on something that could be avoided. It is what it is. But again, this was rough. This to date has been the roughest little situation that I've had to actually deal with in this capacity down here. So again, I thank you all, and I will see you all on the flip side. All right, you guys, later.